we're back and we're going to be talking about the second conditional clause. So, the last video I talked about the first conditional clause. Now we're going to talk about the second conditional clause. I've already done an overview. Now I'm going to go deep into each one of these clauses. And as normal, that I always start with a blank screen because I want you to know how to get there. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to pull up my Bible. One way that you can access the conditional clause, any conditional clause, is by the context menu. We're going to right click and you're going to see down here this second conditional clause where we're going to click on there and we're going to search Bible and see what we come up. Now, one of the things that you're going to see is there is not as many occurrences of the second class conditional. That it's not as prevalent, if you will. So you're able to search it, but so we're going to go into the documents and it's going to show us some information. And we're going to search, we're going to go into our library and we're going to look for the documentation on grammatical constructions. It tells a very brief explanation of the various grammatical constructions. So we're going to look at the Greek one. So, and we're looking at we're interested in, let's go up here in the floating window so we can see this a whole lot better. So we're going to look at the second class conditional. It says that this construction consists of an A followed by a verb in the indicative mood, either the aorist or imperfect in the protasis, with an opotasis also containing the verb in the indicated mood, either the aorist or the imperfect. It provides a semantic value of contrary to the fact. This doesn't really, it just tells us, hey, so it basically says that it's a false statement here. But this isn't, and it's got this other stuff. But let's go to the grammars that I highlighted, because that's where you're going to find some really good information. So let's go back over here. And we want to find two grammars. We want to find a grammar by Wallace. Let's pull up this, let's pull up the newer one. Just to show you it's really the same thing. It's just got a slightly different layout. So, we're going to pull up this, but we're also going to pull up another one as well. So, what we're, there, so far better. We're going to pull this. There. So we're going to pull this one, and we're also going to pull the one by Rob Plummer. Those are really becoming, for me, very great resources for Greek. So let's look at the one by Wallace and see what Wallace has to say about the second class conditional. let's increase our font a bit. We're going to increase our font a bit. It's going to help us with, okay. He says the second class conditional indicates the assumption of an untruth. It's a far better way to say contrary to the fact. For this reason, it is appropriate called contrary to the fact condition or an unreal condition. It might be better to call it presumed contrary to the fact. However, since sometimes it presents a condition that is true, even though the speaker assumes that it is untrue. Here's the example of Luke 7:39. In the protasis, the structure is A plus the indicative mood with a secondary tense as an aorist or an imperfect usually. The opotasis usually has aim, but some examples lack this particle and a secondary tense in the indicative mood. There are about 50 examples of the second class conditional in the New Testament. So, and we're going to analyze the Greek so you can kind of see what is the protasis and what is the opotasis. And then he adds this down here, the amplification of past. There are two types of second class conditions, present contrary to fact and past contrary to fact. Present contrary to the fact condition uses the imperfect in both the protasis and the opotasis. It refers to something that is not true in the present time. A typical translation would be, if X were, then Y would be. As in, if you were a good man, then you would not be here right now. A past contrary to the fact uses the aorist tense in both the protasis and the opotasis. Refers to something that was not true in the past. From the speaker's, a typical translation, if you had been here yesterday, you would have seen a great game. So, one sense is it saying right now. If it's used of the imperfect, it's saying right now this is not true. But in the aorist tense, if it's used in the aorist, then it's saying at some point in the past, this was not true. Then you kind of come into here. He doesn't go a whole lot into the conditional clauses as Wallace does, but he adds some. This is contrary to the fact the particle ain is not always present. A contrary to the fact condition. Always pay attention to context. So this doesn't get into a whole lot. This is Wallace here gives a whole lot better information. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to pull out a passage that uses the second class conditional, and we're going to see something. So let's just pull in Matthew 11:21. This is the one that we're going to go to, and I have a tool that I use. It's the LGNT. I love it. I would highly recommend you to buy this resource. And what is helpful here is, even if you don't know Greek, that you can still find some things out. And what's going to be helpful here is that it's going to help us to find the point. So here is the condition of if. Now, what we're looking for is either an aorist or an imperfect. So we see an aorist here, and in case you needed to look, hey, that is an aorist tense. So it's saying that this event in the past it's saying if this event in the past happened, and we're looking for another one. So let's come back here to Wallace here, and he just gives us a lot of Wallace's stuff gives you some good information. So he's got this whole structure here. So it has a indicative mood, that you're going to have the protasis, and it's either in the indicative mood or it can be in any one of these. Plus the indicative mood in either past tense. It could also be in the aorist or the imperfect. Now, we already heard about the significance of these two to what it is doing. So we're looking for something either in the aorist or the imperfect. So when we come over to here and we look at this, so we had a verb in the imperfect, and we're looking for another verb. So this is a participle. So this is not the result. If the miracles, if in Tyre and Sidon the miracles had been done, the other condition is they would have repented. So the condition is, hey, if these miracles were done, which they weren't, but if they were, they would have repented. So the result of the condition is the repentance in Tyre and Sidon. So going back, so both of these, are in the aorist tense. So this is a past event that did not happen. From the advantages, and we know that it did not happen. But he's saying if they had, then they would have repented long ago. And it's the point to indicate judgment upon the people that Jesus is speaking to. Let's look at another one that could give us some input here. Let's see if we have any that are in the epistles. That's kind of what, okay. Let's go to Romans 7:7. So we're going to go to Romans 7:7. And we're going to look at this. And we're going to look under the hood in Greek and see what kind of second-class conditional it is. So we're going to go to Romans 7:7. So we're looking for our ifs right here. Here's the condition. And this is an aorist tense, I believe. Yeah. So this is a event in the past that he's saying, hey, if I didn't have the law, I would not have known what sin was. So here's the condition. We're looking for another aorist. I'm looking for another aorist. This is a plural perfect. And here, it's almost implied of the result is implied. So if I would have known, let's kind of come back here to the English. So if it had not been for the law, I would have not known sin. So if the so it's making a false statement. If I hadn't had the law, then I would have not known what sin was. So here, right here, is our other error. So this is talking about a past event. So if it was not for sin, I would not have known what covetousness what was. So here is the condition. This would be the process. And this would be the hypothesis. Let's kind of go to another one that's a little bit easier. So let's go to something more simpler. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 2:8. So we're going to go to 1 Corinthians 2:8. And all we're doing is looking at these from the vantage point of the Greek. Right here can be a whole lot better. So sometimes these are accompanied with a negator here, like ook, and you got this particle on here. This one is really easy to determine. So if I had known, so here is the process. For if they had known, so of course that the implication that they hadn't. So if they had known, they would not have crucified. So here that right here is the process, right here is the hypothesis. And us understanding what's the condition, it helps us to understand it. But when you're preaching and teaching, once again, when you're preaching and teaching, that you don't want to be robotic. You want to come out with the new nuances. So in the case of our passage, if they had, they would have not. So the whole point. So you want to impress upon your people that the people of this world did not fully understand of who Christ was, and because if they hadn't, they wouldn't have crucified him. So the whole point of Paul's argument here is that the wisdom of God does not come by the way of the world, but through the way of God. And he's building this argument, and he's using the second class conditional here to really to make his point clear and concise. I hope this was helpful into understanding a little bit more of what's going on with this first class condition or this second class conditional. You have a wonderful day, and come back again, maybe, because I'm going to touch on a very important one, the third class conditional.